To Each a Tempo, an Ace Attorney and Elite Beat Agents fanfiction. Chapter 6. Morning came too soon. Phoenix paced in front of the defendant's lobby couch, still mulling over the particulars of shoe technology. What was the difference between infrasound and regular sound anyway? Did it matter?
Relax, Nick.
Maya finished off her breakfast bagel and flicked some sesame seeds from her robe.
We have plenty of time.
Yeah, I hope so.
They still had a cover story to memorize. A story with all the lines and cues of a Shakespearean epic, probably. He didn't need to look at Maya to see the lip-chewing thought. She stayed silent, and the otherworldly tingle of magic soon began trickling in. 26 minutes until court began, and the bailiffs finally delivered Stewart. Something careful and docile laced his movements, as though he put in a special effort to obey the officers. He watched the bailiff's every retreating step out of the lobby doors and turned back to Phoenix.
Morning.
He looked hopefully between his new team members. His hand crept to his ear, idly scratching under his blonde mop as far as the world could see, but Phoenix could guess what he really pressed at.
I'm here. Ready, boys?
Foxy.
Stewart's grin spread, relieved.
Did I ever miss you? So what's the story?
I hope I won't be left out.
Stewart looked to Mia, jolting with realization. The two-person conference became a circle of three. Mia offered her hand.
Mr. Lowe?
It's Lowe.
Stewart accepted the handshake. He did an admirable job of almost not letting his eyes wander.
You're...
He squinted, considering her features.
You're not Miss Faye, are you?
I am.
She tilted her head, smiling.
Mia Faye, though.
Agents were familiar with Kurain techniques, and had a hand of their own in the mystical arts. If anyone would recognize a channeled spirit among the living, Agent J would. It was strange, having this secret weapon seem like common knowledge, but it was fair considering what Phoenix knew about the agency. More than fair.
It's just Miss Faye, Fox. We're free to talk.
He looked back to Phoenix, grin returning.
We'll make sure she stays up to speed, too. All set? Let's hear it.
Their backup stood ready to assist, and time grew ever shorter. Phoenix nodded, and had fresh notepaper at the ready. The cover story was no classic of fiction, just a careful bending of the truth, and Stewart looked nearly as relieved as Phoenix felt. Court filed to order. Stewart was led to his defendant's box, and Phoenix squared his shoulders and arranged notes on the defense stand. The spectators' chatter echoed off grand morning gold courtroom walls. Edgeworth leafed through a folder, 1,000 miles away, magenta and ruffles pulling Phoenix's attention every time he tried to concentrate on written words.
This should be interesting.
Mia watched Edgeworth as well, arms folded. Phoenix could practically hear the gears at work in her head. She looked sidelong at him, theories in her eyes.
Things really have changed between you two, haven't they?
How could they not? The sleepless nights and frantic days of the young guard trial had only begun to fade in Phoenix's memory. Rival and friend were words too simple to hold everything he and Edgeworth had struggled through. Phoenix studied his hands against the notepaper, and he sighed.
They've changed for me. Edgeworth, maybe he knew all along. But we trust each other, Chief.
Phoenix could only hope he believed his own words.
Be careful, Phoenix. He'll still rip our cover to shreds if you give him the chance.
Whatever the past held, whatever Phoenix imagined, Foxx was absolutely right. It was quiet. He could feel Mia's stare picking his locks, for a crowd-muttering moment, and the judge entered with a swirl of dark cloak. Order fell, and there was no more time for wondering.
The court is now in session for the trial of Mr. Stewart Lowe.
The prosecution is ready, Your Honor.
Edgeworth's eyes flicked to meet Phoenix. For an instant, he forgot briefings and plans. His fires lit, and the guilt nearly left him.
The defense is ready, Your Honor.
The judge lowered his head, passing gaze over each side.
Then let the prosecution give its opening statement.
The prosecution will prove that Mr. Stewart Lowe is the only reasonable suspect in the murder of Miss Morna Beasley. He was apprehended fleeing the scene of the murder mere moments after its occurrence, and this places considerable suspicion upon him.
Toying the gavel's handle between his fingers, wasn't it a little early to be considering a verdict? The judge nodded.
Yes, that is definitely cause for suspicion. You may proceed, Mr. Edgeworth.
Since the defendant has yet to give a statement on his whereabouts at the time of the murder...
Edgeworth glanced to Phoenix, all poised now, theatrical in every motion.
The prosecution requests a cross-examination of the defendant.
Mr. Wright, do you have any objections?
Attention weighed on Phoenix. The game had barely begun, but they couldn't hide. Couldn't show Edgeworth anything but the willingness of a client not guilty.
Go ahead, it'll be fine.
No objections, Your Honor.
Mia shifted in his peripheral vision, maybe nodding thoughtful.
Then the prosecution calls Mr. Lowe to the stand.
Bailiffs swarmed, and the defendant's box's hinges creaked, thin and distressed in the silence.
You'll do fine, Jay. Agents are just assistants. The specifics aren't important. You can do this. I know you can.
Phoenix was sure he saw Stewart's Adam's apple bob as he passed, but everything else about him was the ready ease of a performer taking the stage. They knew their lines, and they could match any performance Edgeworth came up with. Stewart took his place before the court. Edgeworth eyed him briskly.
Please state your name and occupation.
Stewart Lowe.
He smiled, hooking his thumbs in jeans pockets.
And I do a bit of everything.
Edgeworth's brow arched.
Everything?
Helping people move, consultation, running errands, a little bit of surveillance work. Everything.
Oh, I see. Odd jobs.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it.
Stewart's smile turned real, and Phoenix could tell the difference now.
I just help people with whatever they need.
Carefully silent, Edgeworth carried on staring Stewart down, searching for flaws in the testimony, and maybe trying to imagine Stewart as a roving jack-of-all-trades while he was at it.
And what were you doing yesterday morning at 11:25 a.m.?
I was working all that morning. I take care of events in the park sometimes. My boss really keeps me hopping.
It wasn't often that people meant the phrase so literally.
Did you encounter the victim, Miss Beasley?
I've never seen her before, so no.
Did you meet with anyone? Did anyone know you were in the park that day?
I talked to my coworkers first. You know, before the wedding.
Working on that one. We've got him listed in the caterer's registrar as a general helper if anyone decides to get nosy.
And Phoenix certainly wouldn't put it past Edgeworth to be nosy.
And I had to meet some event coordinator off-site. Just make sure their specs were turning out okay. I thought I might be too late, so I was running down that forest to meet him. And maybe not the best time to be wearing a doofy penguin suit, but what can you do?
Foxx, from the sound of things, tried to snicker and joked instead on a live rodent. Phoenix filed the term doofy penguin suit with all his other colorful terms for stiff suit cloth, promising himself to use it sooner or later. But Edgeworth had no room for merriment, and he tightened, laying a hand on the stand too carefully.
So, let me get this straight, Mr. Lowe. You were near the scene of the murder before, during, and after its occurrence, and no one can account for your exact whereabouts during that time? Can an event coordinator come before the court to confirm why you fled the scene of a freshly committed crime?
The ease drained from Stewart. Biting his lip, he glanced at Phoenix like a plea.
Slant the truth, Jay. It's all right. You didn't see the victim, the other target, anyone.
Phoenix backed it with his own nod. He could work with the truth, any fragments of it he was allowed. He could piece it back together and make it work. Stewart looked back to Edgeworth.
No one was around, no. And the event coordinator I was looking for, I didn't have a name or anything. I just knew I had to find him. Nobody saw me.
Secrecy was an agent's best defense any other time, but now it turned against them. It made murmur flicker through the gallery. It made Edgeworth smile satisfied, shaking his head slow.
No further question.
I hope some more concrete testimonies will be brought forth. This wouldn't be much of a court of law without any proof. Mr. Edgeworth, you may proceed.
You've won cases on less likely stories, Phoenix.
She nudged a note sheet to perfect right-angled organization.
Good, that went all right. Keep it up, team.
For a moment, Phoenix wondered if the defense stand was made of real wood, and if he should knock it. But however alarmist his imagination could be, however many variables were beyond control, he knew how Edgeworth worked, methodically. Edgeworth would want to calculate the trial's size and shape, scrutinize every piece of evidence, and lay traps far and wide. On short notice, with the defendant's side of the story so vague, the first witness would need to lay groundwork. It would be someone like...
The prosecution calls Detective Gumshoe to the stand.
Someone like the most doggedly faithful investigator the LA Force had to offer. Gumshoe took his place before the court, tie a little neater than usual, hope shining a little brighter.
Please state your name and occupation.
Dick Gumshoe, sir. I'm a detective with the homicide unit down at the precinct.
Edgeworth lifted a hand to flourish.
You may give your testimony now, Detective.
Phoenix glanced to his side. Mia smiled slow, and she resettled her folded arms.
Let's see what we can get out of him.
Here came their best chance for footing. Anticipation drummed harder in Phoenix's veins. The world narrowed to words and logic, and Gumshoe's eager nod.
The murder took place yesterday morning at around 11:25 a.m. The victim, Miss Beasley, was in Foster Park, heading down the South Trail.
Gumshoe bristled suddenly.
Minding her own business, and this happens!
Hold it!
Calling out was a reflex more than a specific intent. Phoenix rubbed his chin as he thought.
Why was she in the park that day? Do you know, Detective?
The victim was dressed well, but wearing battered up old running shoes.
He motioned to the evidence table, where a soft-looking white sweater and wear-creased sneakers filled a clear evidence bag.
There are a lot of trails in Foster Park, so she was probably just out for a walk.
But you don't know that she was minding her own business.
No?
Detective, your idle speculations about the victim have no place in your testimony. Please continue, and I'm sure you know what will happen if there are further indiscretions.
Gumshoe gulped, thinking of his shrinking noodle rations, no doubt.
Sorry, Mr. Edgeworth. The victim was struck once with a blunt object on the back of the head. She was pronounced dead on arrival at the hospital.
A bailiff slipped to Phoenix's side, depositing new ammunition on the stand, a park map in crisp printed ink, and a much wordier autopsy report. Excessive intracranial hemorrhaging due to advanced age, it stated. And Phoenix couldn't help imagining someone frail crumpled on the leaves. Morna Beasley's grandmotherly face gazed back at him from the photo attached to the report.
There are footprints leading away from the crime scene, through the woods toward the street. It rained recently, so the ground was muddy, and the prints obviously headed away from the victim.
Another delivery from the bailiff. A pair of black and white crime scene photos, featuring a painted victim's outline, and a close shot of a shoe print pressed into mud.
Which way did the victim fall, Detective? Forwards or backwards?
Gumshoe paused thoughtfully. It was an awfully important detail to forget.
Forward. She was found lying on her front, and since she was hit on the back of the head, and the prints angle away like that, she was obviously attacked from behind.
Mia murmured and took the photos to glower at. Phoenix glanced at the park map and resisted the urge to sketch Agent J's flight path in on the main trail.
So, did you find any other footprints?
It's a public park walking path, of course we did. Not from the attacker, though.
The fleeing footprints were from a size 10 men's dress shoe of a common brand, the same shoe the defendant was wearing at the time of arrest.
Fox's laptop keys clattered.
They're store-bought dress shoes. They could belong to anyone.
Objection!
Phoenix brandished the wedding itinerary.
A wedding was taking place in the park at the time of the murder. The footprints could be from anyone at all.
Mr. Wright,
Here it was, the old Edgeworth smirk.
do you really suppose that wedding guests were running around in the mud?
But the mud sticks to shoes. Did your analysis find any mud on the defendants?
Edgeworth's smirk widened and sharpened.
As a matter of fact, it did. A close match to the soil of the crime scene.
A murmur rose from the gallery above. Phoenix clenched fists. He had stumbled into a trap already.
Phoenix J was on patrol. He crossed just about every type of terrain there is.
There's sand on shoes. The defendant's shoes also had sand in their treads. Didn't the police find matching footprints on Foster Park's main path? well removed from the crime scene?
Gumshoe blinked, as though surprised anyone remembered him.
Yeah, actually. The size and shape of the shoe print is right anyway.
Another murmur from the gallery, and Phoenix could nearly hear Edgeworth's teeth grind.
It looks like our defendant ran. He ran so far away all night and day. Is there any evidence to prove where he was at the exact time of the murder?
There is, Your Honor.
Edgeworth cast a glance across his notes.
He'll have a good card to play here. Let's hope it's something we can explain using the story we've got.
Possibilities flashed across Phoenix's thoughts. The missing microphone, the crime scene he should have tried harder to comb. And then Edgeworth spoke.
There is a witness to the murder who was present at the wedding and can confirm details beyond a shadow of doubt. The prosecution calls Mr. Vanderspiegle to the stand.
Just as Phoenix thought, someone with a story to unravel. But how had Edgeworth prepped a witness when he had no defendant's statement to pick holes into?
Vanderspiegle, I before E. I hope. I'll have the info on the witness. Just give me a moment.
The gallery chattered, and Phoenix steeled again for a fight. The witness, it turned out, was theater incarnate. He swept across the court with purple coattails flapping, back ramrod straight and barrel chest puffed proud. Taking his place at the witness stand, he flourished to no one in particular, gleaming all over with hair gel and gold detailing.
Witness, please state your name and occupation.
Vanderspiegle, however, was staring directly at Phoenix.
You, sir.
Phoenix couldn't help rubbing his neck.
Me?
Yes. I never converse with an individual before committing their name to mind. What might yours be?
Witness?
Edgeworth was dismissed with a wave of white-gloved hand.
Terribly rude to not know the name of the gentleman I'll be speaking with this day. Just terrible. Your name, sir?
Phoenix grinned sheepish. A little attention was always nice.
I'm Phoenix Wright, attorney at law.
He had always liked the way it rolled off the tongue.
Witness?
Right. Yes. Of course.
Vanderspiegle brightened like a child presented with candy.
Would you be any relation to Mr. Left and Right? I'll understand if you aren't, of course. The name has got a remarkable history of...
Witness, this is a court of law, not a social gala. Your name and occupation.
I would be Cecilius T. Vanderspiegle, proprietor, director, and executive supervisor of extravagant wedding services and all related ventures. Really, Mr. Edgeworth, there is no need to be uncouth.
Certainly not.
Straightening, Edgeworth smoothed bland superiority back onto his face.
Your catering service was holding the wedding function in Foster Park yesterday morning. Is that correct?
Yes. Our sterling memories package, plus Swedish meatballs, no onions. Our lovely bride was allergic, and with karaoke as a finale.
Never had there been a more effective way of making sure people didn't hang around.
I personally oversee all catering ventures. I was present yesterday to ensure that every guest received the proper extravagant experience.
Edgeworth produced a report.
Mr. Vanderspiegle has a photographic memory. He's proven this for police, beyond a doubt, by reciting 20 consecutive pages of the telephone book.
Another brightening of excitement in Vanderspiegle.
Shall I demonstrate now? Smith, John, 555.
No, that won't be necessary.
A photographic memory? That's quite impressive. I can't even remember my own phone number.
And with such a memory, Mr. Vanderspiegle, you can recall every person you meet, correct?
That I can.
I don't like where this is going.
She took the words right out of Phoenix's mouth.
And did you know everyone present at the wedding?
Vanderspiegle nodded.
Yes. I received introduction to each of the 117 guests. I made sure of it, and my usual roster of staff was present with the notable exception of Roberto. He was replaced that day by his brother Luca. Far less competent with a service tray, but his effort was commendable, truly.
All Phoenix could see then was the smirk creeping onto Edgeworth. He knew that look too well. That was a warning. The last rustle of feathers before a falcon's diving strike.
Mr. Vanderspiegle.
Edgeworth pointed suddenly to the defendant's box.
Did that man assist in any way with the catering event in Foster Park?
Silence gripped the court. Vanderspiegle stared, startled. He looked to Stewart, and back to Edgeworth.
Why, no. I've never seen him in my life.
To Each a Tempo was written by Pyrasaur. Ace Attorney and Elite Beat agents are owned by Capcom and Enis, respectively. The narrator for this story is Genndy C.O.G. The voice of Phoenix Wright is Lastni. The voice of Maya Fey is Miki. The voice of Miles Edgeworth is Lazy Ace Dia. The voice of Mia Fey is Maxi. The voice of Dick Gumshoe is Genndy C.O.G. The voice of the judge is also Genndy C.O.G. The voice of Agent J is yet again Genndy C.O.G. The voice of Agent Foxx is Galen Skibyak. The voice of Cecilius T. Vanderspiegle is Pcasao. Thank you for listening, and we'll see you next week.